Hey, how you doing? Please excuse the audio quality, but this is like time number 7. Trying to record this. Don't know what's going on. I'm not saying that makes it special or anything like that, but I had a little bit of a up and down today when it comes to the concept of NPCs. If you're unfamiliar with that is, it is the idea that some people around us are non-player characters. Sounds crazy, right? Well, it's like kind of... The deal is that when you start seeing these gates open to another perspective, which is... The Mandela effect is one of them. The fact that 9/11 could be an inside job was an inside job is one of them. The UFO thing is one of them. The idea that the modern physics and the curve model and all that is one of them. But then what happens is that there's this created disinformation campaign around them. And it's, in my opinion, to stifle people into a different direction of crazy town, intentionally. Actually, because who runs media? Nobody we elected. The guy that I posted recently, Yuri Benzmanov, I think, who used to be KGB, talks about this subversion tactics, And there's a lot of noises in my car right now. Hopefully that's not the worst thing that's ever happened to you. But I just want to quickly talk about it. All right, so I found a channel. I'm listening to it. Dude's pretty Gnostic. And I've been having my issues with Gnosticism because it seems like it's just too popular, and there's a lot of... I don't trust the people I've been hearing about it from. Not everybody, but... And it has a lot of, interesting things which are viable, such as, the concept of the demiurge, and that, whatever's ruling this place is into chaos town, you know what I mean? Basically, it's Matrix-oriented thinking. And I think the Matrix was actually Gnostically influenced. And... All right, I don't really have much to comment on Gnosticism. I'm not trying to go there, but because I don't really know enough about it, and I'm sure there's... That's just a different subject. But right now I'm talking about the idea of NPCs, and it was connected to a Gnostic channel. And it's interesting how in this game of discernment Olympics that we all have to participate in now, some people don't fall for this. There's that Mark Twain quote that if everybody's going a certain direction and that seems to be the direction you're going, then you should reanalyze your, perspective, sort of a thing. It definitely didn't word it right, but you get the idea. I see a correlation with okay, so in these answered so the social scientists, I found another channel where this person was highly qualified and smart. Not just speaking to a layman sort of a thing, and very much interested in researching in academia for real. But I'm going to play a clip from this person. And I didn't actually know that there was some social science studies that came out in 2011 about the idea of the NPC, which was based off of a study which really doesn't give credence at all for it being relevant. The reason, this person also said that very rarely do the social scientists make any remarkable discoveries. In fact, I feel like they make a lot. It depends on who's funding them and who's talking. You know what I mean? Anything you hear in the mainstream, I got to tell you, if you don't know this already, I work for the media. Used to work for media, getting out of it. There's a swing on everything. And if you see things that are, and there's connections between what runs the media right now, which is, very much, I'm the guy who's red and blue are both screwed. You know what I mean? It's kind of, but that's, I'm not defending one just because I'm not into one just because I'm defending the other. But this far left thing is actually connected. Think about the connection campaign, the hive mind idea. Now, globalism and New World Order, and I'm not going full reptilian on you, but I'm saying that there being a viral faction of the planet which just seems to be spreading, right? And in terms of what's values, and this is the same thing which has been warping our physics and also our perspective of the world. I mean, the Rockefeller, Rockefeller. funding the education system to program kids into believing that they're just their bodies and that their consciousness is just a side effect of neurons firing in their brain. You know, these kids are gonna. There's a lot of widespread depression probably from somebody who's a materialist because they think they don't matter over if they weren't. You know what I'm trying to say? Like a larger amount of suffering from a worldview, which seems to be the status quo. And then you've got the little small doors towards, oh, there's more. But then they fill you in with a new version of the same old bullshit. So the thing is that the Mandela effect right now, you've got these mainstream outlets saying it's because of parallel dimensions. Well, it's not just that it's wrong for that reason, in my opinion, but also logically so if you think about it. But it also matches the other campaigns, which is to divide people. If you think you transfer dimensions and that, or that you know, I mean, if you're in the Mandela effect and you see some of these channels, you know which channels I'm talking about. It's pretty obvious. The ones that are like totally shills. And, you know, so the study for the NPCs was just based off of studying a sample of a small amount of people randomly during the day. There wasn't much control of the experiment. And I'm only going to play a small clip from that channel, which I thought put it into perspective pretty well. And they pretended like they were into it and that the evidence was real based on the way that they read it. And I really recommend you listen to it because I think that really, I want to just, you know, go into discernment Olympics as much as possible because they're good. They're good at their trickery, right? And I still defend the Mandela effect as being something which is happening to us from an outside source, and possibly it doesn't fit in line with the matrix. Something's hacking it. I can't definitely say. I mean, I go back and forth, obviously, but I just see a lot of real virtue in some of these metaphors, such as with the Joy Division one that I posted, where instead of saying now, love will tear us apart, like it did, now it says love will tear it apart. And if I know anything about anything, I know that somewhere within the heart and love is the freedom matrix of, you know, loving your enemy, in my opinion, diffuses conflict, and conflict seems to be the goal of what's running the planet as the virus. So just automatically assuming that the reason why other people are interested in the Mandela effect being because they're non-player characters, dangerous. And I wasn't ready to like fully just go ahead and say like, yeah, no, the NPC thing is horseshit, until I really just started to think about it, and then capped it with this, seeing the automatic affiliation with. The thing about gnosis is it's a little bit sketchy when an ideology is very much, you can only find the truth in yourself. That's narcissism. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't consider that, but also I think that one of the biggest threats is humans connecting, real humans connecting. So what's an alternative as to why nobody cares about things that matter to us? Well, maybe it's because there's such a great campaign of shillery when it comes to the alternative thinking, because there's already a set up paradigm to make those people look stupid, and there's a lot of effort on the aggressor's part to make these things look dumb. Mix that with the fact that people are suffering from having to work 9 to 5 like slaves, like 5 days a week. On the weekend, they need to just decompress and then, you know, spend time with their family. People don't have time. There might be a correlating factor of available time for people who are into the Mandela effect, honestly. And we have to be careful, you know, that we don't fall for nonsense. And so I think there's a big mind control thing going on. I mean, Roseanne was just on Joe Rogan's podcast, and Rogan's considered part of the intellectual dark web of people who are actually like, you know, and I don't know about that program if it's 100% like without its, what's the word? Deceptions, but it's just interesting that there's a little small faction of actual objective reporting going on, of which this channel also seems to be, that I'm going to play a clip from. And she was, you know, basically saying straight up within like the first 5 minutes, like that there's mass mind control going on. I would say that's more likely than NPCs. Think about it. You know, technology is at a cusp right now more than it's ever been. And we're walking antennas. You know, chemtrails are spraying metals. I don't know actually about the chemtrails. I don't want to even go into it. I don't want to actually even talk about the general conspiracies and stuff. I don't want to completely speculate Olympic too hard. But the idea that they're figuring out how to hack people's memories is interesting. But I'm not talking about hacking the memories. I'm not talking about that. That could be a spiritual thing as to discernment and perception as a spiritual factor. What I'm talking about is why nobody cares, even though they see it. It's, well, interesting that we're slaves to a corporate thing here where we don't have time to actually find our true voice. One very interesting element that this video raises is that what they based NPCs on, this study, was that like a third of the people or a quarter of the people sometimes didn't have an inner monologue, and other times they weren't able to draw up mental imagery. But the reality of that situation is that there's a definite connection between a louder inner monologue and anxiety. Because I was thinking as I was listening to it, I was like, I'm not an NPC, that's for damn sure. And I sometimes just am not thinking about anything because I'm at peace. And actually, yeah, that's true. When that thing's going off, like, what about this? It's probably because I'm anxious, So there's tomfoolery going on out there, and we gotta remain critically thinking, I just really, it's cool when people accept that this is real, because I think it shows a real sign of humility. You know what I mean? It's like a bummer when people who are humble and trying to like know the truth are deceived, and like I'm deceived too. I'd love to hear good points for somebody. Leave a comment if you have a good case for the NPC thing being real, aside from the idea of some people actually being like reptilian shapeshifters or something. Like I'm actually saying that's more viable to me, like a few, you know what I mean? Or because I've seen it with my own eyes. That's why I can say that. I've also seen people disappear. I recently posted a video about that. But that a large portion of the planet is NPCs. I think anything that brings our empathy down towards our fellow human being is a deception program. There's actually a guy who's making books who's saying we should forget about empathy altogether. Jeez, Louise, But all right, here's that clip.
It would be really fascinating if we found out that there were some people who were just NPCs. But it's very rare in the social sciences we find something so revolutionary, and it's why this study published in 2008 and the Psychology Today article published in 2011 are suddenly making a comeback now almost 10 years later, despite the fact that, again, they've been around for a while. Because it's very easy to misinterpret data. And frankly, it's not your job unless you are a social scientist, and it is a huge expenditure of not just time but cognitive energy and resources that could be better utilized on far more important matters for your life, like enjoying pornography.
I trust you're enjoying your pornography. Hand toast. Looks delicious.
Oh, it is. I can't believe it's not butter.
The point is, the mild hysteria surrounding the study is actually perfect proof positive of what the researchers found. Sometimes we aren't thinking about things too critically or too deeply, and a really sensational claim, like that a significant portion of the populace are walking around without a thought rattling around in their skulls, is rife for repetition. It's rife for memeing. In contrast, the quite uninteresting reality is, well, uninteresting.
I think a little differently, though, about that. I think reality is more fantastical and interesting oriented than we're told. But here's an interesting, strange speculation connection where I'm trying to tie it into, so a reason why I think that it might be that a lot of people aren't interested in this rather than being NPCs is because most people don't have time to think about it because they're stuck in what the Matrix wants, which is not having enough time to actually find your sovereign, free-thinking mind to realize this place is full of crap a lot. And so here's a potential speculative message in a Mandela effect. The Feord logo clearly, and there's evidence for this, has a little swoop in it now that wasn't there before, and there is evidence. And I also remember it this way too. So it went from Feord to what looks like Feord now, F-E-O-R-D. Well, the word Feord means war. And there's an interesting element of the fact that Henry Ford, maybe he wasn't responsible for it. I've heard also that the labor unions were, I don't know enough about that, but he was part of the mass acceptance of the 9 to 5. So it's like we've accepted our own chains. That's the war game. And that's why people are thinking that stuff like this, which there is evidence, is just absurd because they don't have a reference because this mind control has been going on for a long time. That was the 1800s. All right. Well, see you next time.